I think that it's similar to the same reason that people become volunteer firefighters. They want to do something to help other people. The uniqueness of the Coast Guard is that their primary function, as opposed to the other military services, is that it's to rescue people, to save lives, to save property, where the other military services' primary responsibility is the defense of the country. The crews are very close. They train together, they work together, they're assigned together. When they're on duty, they're all on duty together. They care about each other. There's a camaraderie that you see there. There's a mutual protection of their own lives as well as their ability to rescue other people. So they become very close.
And oftentimes we see the crew more than we see our families. So they're sort of our families away from home. We've all been through intense situations together, had a lot of good times, played a lot of sports, played a lot of basketball, football, and watched each other get qualified in all our positions. So we definitely know each other maybe more than some friends that we've known for years and years and years. It's a lot of time together.
Yeah, we're definitely a type group. I mean, you can we spend 15, 20 days out of the month with each other. We run all these cases and sometimes life-threatening conditions, and you grow to trust and respect the people you work with, and you kind of just bond with each other.
This station particularly, I'm not sure I'd work at another station. As a volunteer, I have my choice. But this station is a very active station, has a very interesting area to work in that includes part of the bay and then offshore. Has a significant caseload, which means a lot of activity. And I really like the people here too. That's a big reason why I do it.
I've been to a couple other units besides this, and this is by far, I feel like I'm in the real Coast Guard. As people say, oh, you need to go to the real Coast Guard. I feel like this is the real Coast Guard.
I joined the Coast Guard mainly to have something I couldn't walk away from, have a job that would hold me for 4 years at the time, and became good at it. I've gotten to see the world. I've gotten to go to the North Pole, South Pole, all over, and now here at Golden Gate I'm able to run search and rescue with the best of them.
A couple years I lived on a boat in Ventura Harbor, and I always used to see all the Coast Guard guys driving by on their boats, and just kind of thought that looked pretty interesting.
I was born and raised in a boating community. Parents always had boats, worked at a marina when I was younger.
There's a coxswain who's going to be in charge of the boat, who's driving the boat most of the time. There's crewmen, and crewmen are handling lines, rigging up fenders, qualified first aid, basic first aid, and there's an engineer who's obviously going to be in charge of the engines, all the steering equipment, and all the mechanical issues on board.
Boatswain's mate, they're in charge of driving the boat, instructing the crew. Depending on your rank, it really depends on your job. As an E5, I'm required to be a coxswain in charge of the entire vessel.
And the coxswain is always directing everything, but it's also good for him to know that he's got an experienced crew who knows how to do everything, and he can say it, but he expects it to already be done. And we train for it so much, that's usually the way it goes.
Usually my job is to do engine rounds, so I try not to do too much navigation. Usually there's other boatswain mates that are on board besides the coxswain, and they'll assist with that, because I have too many other things I got to do while underway, like make engineering round, keep a good lookout.
Typically you have anywhere from 4 to 6 crew members that go out on a case. Obviously the coxswain's in charge of the boat and responsible for the case on scene. The engineer has his specific responsibilities in terms of the mechanics of the boat and keeping the engines running, and the crew members have specific jobs in specific rescue situations that they're responsible for.
When the coxswain gives somebody an order, typically the crew member will acknowledge with a response of what the order was. That way the coxswain understands that the crewman heard him exactly the way he said it.
Track's good, speed's good! First set of bits! Speed's fast! Second set of bits! Third set of bits!
And we always make sure when we go into case that everybody knows exactly what they're doing, what their specific responsibility is for that case. It's real important, otherwise, without that you got on chaos, and chaos is on a boat like that in weather is dangerous.
Definitely yelling, and that's something that we stress in the Coast Guard from boot camp, is what we call sounding off. In boot camp, it's more of a pride thing, but out here it's a survival thing, especially time-sensitive situations where you got loud wind and rain. It's hard to hear. It's hard to hear what's going on, and you really need to sound off and yell as loud as you can.
Recess man ready!
Communication on the boats is critical, and we train people from the outset the importance of really yelling. I mean, yelling as loud as you can to communicate what you're doing and what you're encountering as a crew member on the deck with a coxswain who is up on the bridge driving the boat.
We assign everyone a position on the boat. We have someone looking forward, someone looking off each side of the vessel, and someone looking astern as well. So the crew is the coxswain's eyes and ears. They're telling the coxswain where all the swells are coming from, breaking waves are coming from, and then the coxswain can hear and make appropriate adjustments in his positioning.
It's all of us really running the case. It's all of us involved in that case. You need one person to make the final call, but as a coxswain, I like to think out loud with the crew. I like to make the crew feel like we're all making a decision together and we're executing it together.
If I'm going out in some bad weather, I'd probably want to be on one of these more so than just about anything else on the water.
Coast Guard Station Golden Gate, Seaman Deck Laura speaking.
A lot of the times it's not one windsurfer, it's 5, 6 windsurfers at one time. And they're very thankful for us being out there because for them it's just a activity, but it's very dangerous for them to be out there.
Still run into a lot of the same people that are trying to stay out a little bit too long and the wind will die like clockwork right around 5 or 6 p.m. and they get stuck out there, can't get back in.
Once he's on board, making sure he doesn't have any injuries or anything like that, and then the gear comes second. The gear is not really a big deal to us. However, dealing with kite surfers, there are lots of lines and stuff, so we want to make sure that those are not getting tangled in our boat or anything, because that could cause another safety hazard.
We're going to ask you to put our swimmers in the water, and we'll do some swim work.
The 47-footer that you see today, which is distinctive because it's unpainted, it has an aluminum finish, was the third in a line of self-righting motor lifeboats that the Coast Guard used. The first of the self-righting boats was the 36-foot motor lifeboat, followed by the 44-foot motor lifeboat, and today the 47-footer. The 47-footer is very common everywhere, very rugged, very reliable boat. Kind of dirty looking because they don't have the shiny white paint that the other Coast Guard cutters have.
This boat's always brought the crew back in every mission. The times that I have seen it roll over, which it's able to do, is 8 to 12 seconds. It'll rewrite in the surf, and it's brought everybody back home. Whether they were fine or not, everybody did make it back.
They look very rugged, and they are very rugged. If you talk to people who serve on them, they're very fond of the ruggedness and the safety of the boat.
The Surfboats is the first small boat that I've ever driven. When I first joined, a friend of mine told their little girl that I was in the Ocean Army, and this is sort of like a sea tank. Best I can describe it.
You can see how far in 50 or 60 years the Coast Guard has come in the safety and the technology of protecting the crews on the patrol boats.
It is made of metal, and it is designed to do so. It has the buoyancy chambers on the forward deck up above and on the aft deck. And this entire forward compartment is pretty much just full of air. There's not a lot of stowage in there, and it's a very light bow, which is helpful and not helpful sometimes. Really, this boat is designed to do that. And when it comes up, it's pretty beaten up. I've seen antennas ripped off. One of these boats actually, prior to me getting here, actually ripped that whole mast structure off.
We've taken some pretty good sized breaks that I wouldn't have thought a boat could take in these boats, and they punch right through the other side, no problem.
It's capable of going out and 30-foot seas and 20-foot surf, and here at Station Golden Gate we've seen that to the max. It can tow up to 150 tons. It can go 25 knots. It's a pretty amazing platform, really.
The boats work good in the surf because the buoyancy that the boat has, the keel is extra weighted, so that way if the boat does flip over, it's going to want to rewrite itself if another wave hits it. Plus it's got all the buoyancy chambers on it. Like if you look overhead, the mast is extra buoyant, so that way it's going to want to rewrite itself.
It's fun to drive. It's responsive. It'll turn on a dime. You can get a lot of power very quickly. It seems to be awesome search and rescue platform.
Well, on the outside, your high dive is fantastic. You can hear, if we're doing a search and rescue case and you're inside, you can't hear people. You can't hear somebody yelling for your help. You can't communicate with your crew. If your crew's out moving around on the deck, you just cannot communicate with them from the inside.
The boat is capable of putting in 400. The reason you keep a full tank is because, if we got to go on a long case offshore, you want to have the maximum amount of fuel. It also affects the boat's stability if you have less fuel, because the fuel tank's right in the center line of the boat, so it's better to have max amount of fuel.
The origins of the lifeboat service were from the Massachusetts Humane Society way back in 1803. Then by 1871, the U.S. government formed the United States Life-Saving Service. There's no question that it was dangerous, though. In the early days, when they were using rowboats, they would often go out and be out as long as 24, 26 hours in the wintertime trying to effect a rescue. There's a slogan that the Coast Guard no longer uses officially, but it dates from the Life-Saving Service, and that is, you have to go out, you don't have to come back. It's in documentation, it says that a keeper may not look at the seas and decide that it's too rough to launch. They must make repeated attempts to launch their lifeboat and fail before they can decide that the rescue is impossible. In 1915, Congress merged the Revenue Cutter Service and the Life-Saving Service to become the Coast Guard. Semper Paratus has always been the slogan of the Coast Guard, which means always ready. The you have to go out, you don't have to come back was never official, but it was the active motto of the people in the life-saving service and beyond.
I like the idea of actually training for stuff that you're going to do maybe even that afternoon.
disconnect the secondary heat line once it connects the primary one?
Yeah, they'll be able to plug it.
Once that primary goes,
Tucson, or lifeboat. Stand by one. Station going 845, pump is on board.
Yeah, that's right. We do a lot of training, a lot of underway training, a lot of classroom training here at the station, from everything from law enforcement to search and rescue drills.
Well, it's a fairly complicated job to get in a small boat, to go out into heavy weather, dangerous weather often, to be in proximity often to another boat that you have to put in tow or a medical case. It's dangerous work, and it's not work that you can do without an adequate amount of training, both for the safety of the crew and obviously for the success of the rescue.
I feel like when I go out and do training, it's not for nothing. You know, it's always, if we go out, you know, and do training, we could, in the middle of training, we could go out and do it, you know? So it's pretty important that people know what they're doing.
If we ever have to effect a rescue on the beach or anywhere in the surf, our operators and crewmen will know how to get into the surf safely, pull someone out of the water, or take a boat in tow and safely exit the surf zone.
It's a good feeling that the training that we do here has an actual purpose, that we actually see it done, sometimes that day, sometimes that month. It's good to know that you're not just going through the motions, you're not just drilling. All these things happen on the water on a pretty continuous basis.
Some of the younger ones coming here, and they're 18, 19 years old, right out of boot camp. Not much maritime experience at all.
But they're thrust into this, so the level of maturity has to go way up really fast, because they're going to be faced with things that the average 19 or 20-year-old who's in college as a sophomore would never face.
And for their safety, as well as the safety of the crew, as soon as you can get them trained up to where they're comfortable on the boats and operate the boats, and you know, their jobs on the boats in a safe manner.
They're going to be faced with life and death. They're going to be faced with situations that they will look and say, how can this happen? Or what could we have done? And be very frustrated. So it's a maturing thing.
So yeah, a lot of training we do is underway training. For instance, the man overboard training, which is just we'll either throw a ring buoy or an actual mannequin type thing, which is what we call an Oscar overboard, and send a couple people down to the recess of the boat, which is meant for pulling people out of the water, and then coxswain will direct us that he's going to make approach on the person, approach him in a straight line, and we call out distances so you can get a better idea where they're at once he loses a visual on them. From there, one person's going to back up the person who's initially getting a hand on the person, pull them on board, make sure they're okay.
And that's one thing that's very impressive about most of the Coast Guard is they're always training. If you get one qualification, you immediately start training for the next qualification.
You routinely see air units working with the 47-footers in order to maintain that skill.
My name is Lieutenant James Connor from Rosemont, Minnesota.
Yeah, my name is Lieutenant Ford Peterson. I'm originally from the western suburbs of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
My name is Robbie Chavez. I'm a Petty Officer Second Class in the United States Coast Guard, and I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, they do the same training as we had to do for becoming a crewman. You have to do so many helots, and rescue swimmers need to do so many hoists to maintain their currency. But we work with them quite a bit.
When the helicopters and the 47-footers are training, it's a dangerous activity, and of course it's more dangerous in the real world when the rescues are taking place.
Definitely one of the dangers, especially when we're working with boats, is just being that low over the water. Getting your basket or rigging, if you're not providing a stable platform or you're not on the same page as the flight mechanic in the back, you could get yourself wrapped around part of the rigging or something else on the boat, one of the snag hazards down below.
Yeah, so working with helos is one of the most dangerous evolutions we do because it's usually in training. I've had one case where you actually had to use a helo, but all the training we did definitely came into play.
Flying a helicopter in and of itself is relatively challenging, but the added stress of being low level out over the water and under adverse weather conditions obviously poses some significant challenges and risks. The superstructure of the vessel itself on the 47 has a number of antennas and stuff that come up off of it, so we need to be cognizant of that. And then obviously anytime the sea states are large enough that it causes the boat to bob around in the water makes it all that much more challenging for us to hover behind the vessel. And also then as we're sending our devices down, whether it be a trail line, a rescue basket, a litter, or even a rescue swimmer, it can be very challenging at times.
It is dangerous because anytime you've connected an aircraft or closely connected an aircraft to a vessel with a piece of steel cable, there's the potential for something bad happening.
The helicopter definitely creates a lot of static electricity anytime we're lowering the basket. So what happens is when the rotor head's turning, we're building up static electricity and we're transferring it down the cable to the basket. So it's definitely important if they don't want a big shock that they ground the basket out before they touch it.
Cages are low in a cage. They had a trail line attached with lead on the bottom of it, and you need to let that hit our boat because there's electrical charge that was from their helicopter that will charge and could potentially shock us. And so the lead line will hit our boat, and we'll slowly haul in that line, and then the cage is attached to that, then that's attached to their helicopter.
If you're not providing a stable platform or you're not on the same page as the flight mechanic in the back, you could get yourself wrapped around part of the rigging or something else on the boat, one of the snag hazards down below. And then you're essentially attached to that boat. So we have a mechanism in the hoist assembly in the event that happens. We can either unfoul it ourselves or we can hit the button and it'll basically cut that line and disconnect us from the boat.
No, we don't rely on the boat so much. We have some instruments inside the aircraft, primarily what's called a radar altimeter, or RADALT we call it, and it's essentially measuring the distance or the altitude we are over the surface. It works over land as well as over water, and it will register basically those waves as they pass back and forth. And as pilots, what we try and do is match the waves and basically just fly the aircraft up and down along the wave, trying to maintain a steady altitude.
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember my first time, you were looking at the wheels right in front of you and going, it's pretty low, right? So, and then you're worried about how much farther they have for the propellers to start hitting, and so it's a pretty amazing thing.
There's pros and cons. If the seas are fairly calm, it's good to be closer because the hoist level is lower. One of the things that they try not to do is stay over the boat too long, so if anything happens, they're over the water instead of over the boat.
From the helicopter, we're talking to probably the coxswain down who's driving the boat, and then he's communicating with the crew that's on the back of their boat in the well deck receiving the device. So there's really 4 groups of people all talking together.
Communications are huge because of the sound, the noise. Everybody's wearing hearing protection already, so hand signals we use to the helicopter pilots, let them know that we're good to go.
Hand communication is vital between the boat and the helicopter, specifically because we can't hear them. Anytime they get on the radio, it just causes a lot of feedback with the helicopter being above them. So the hand signals are definitely an important part of our hoisting procedures.
Side of any operation with the helicopters that you can't hear as well, and then you're worried about an aircraft that's 25 feet away from you. So it's just another aspect, another thing to be worried about.
For us especially, we're rescuers, and there's no greater feeling than being able to actually save someone's life.
Right now, but we're checking it out as a precaution for sector. So it's a pilot boat that actually called it in the first place. So more than likely, if anybody
it gets cold, let me know, and you can head in the enclosed bridge, especially you guys. So. Yep, all zeros. Coming up. What? All right, let's get set up for tow. 3-inch tow line.
Roger, we're on scene with the vessel.
Kevlar bridle.
Is that bridle?
What? Another heaving line set up. We're going to fasten the radio. What? Do you have any gear in the water? Yeah. No? You have a net down? Where's it off your stern? Hey, good one. Can you hear this guy? What are you doing, sir? Ask him where his gear's at. Where's your gear at? He's got a net out. He's got a net. Do that. Like that. Off the stern. All right. Yeah. I can't hear him. I can't hear him either. It looks like it's off his port side. I'm going to try and get a little closer on his starboard. Oh, we're going to close bridge. I can hear him. Joyce, this is Coast Guard. You're sitting right smack in the main ship channel here, so we're going to have to get you out of here. How big is your net and how far out does it extend?
Not too big the net, you know. You can pull them inside the bay, you know. None of the problem, you can pull them inside the bay.
How many feet out do you have?
Yeah. The feet of it, 20, 45 and for just baby.
100 feet out! Speed's good, track's good, have a shot! Have a shot! That's up on deck! Go up on your bow! Roll your bow! Take the heaving line off! Okay. The other line!
He needs to take it.
Take it out of the middle of the vessel!
Just tend that line, all right? All right, closing.
Put it outside your rally!
All right, get him on the radio. Get him on the radio.
Get off the valve! Oh, negative, stop! Go clear! Get off the valve! Go in your pod out! Go in your pod out! Yo. Go inside! Get inside! Off after a while. 2.5! 3.5! 4, bits bang!
Fishing vessel Joyce, United States Coast Guard 47267. Would you put your steering to a midship over? How copy?
Vessel Joyce 67 on 22. Copy. Joyce 67. We're gonna slow you down a bit. This time it's impossible for you to try and pull up your fishing gear.
See, I got the gloves, I got the...
I'll go try the engine room in there. So stand here, yeah. Over.
He's trying his engine?
Start the motor for the port hydraulic, you know, for porting gear. I go try again.
Hey, is all your gear out of the water?
Yeah, did everything.
All right, cover 2. on one. Put over two, give it to this guy here. All right, yeah, that looks good, good one. All right, stand by. All right, cool. Hey, have you guys ever been here before? No. Have you been to this harbor before? No. Okay, there's a phone number you can call. Just call the harbor master. Tell him we towed you in, and he'll know what to do with you guys, okay?
Yeah, it's right there.
In the Bay Area, it's pretty common to come across a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages. Nobody here really speaks any different languages. We've got a couple of people who speak Spanish, and that's about it. So with last night's scenario, we were trying to set up for a stern tow, which is usually a pretty simple evolution. You just tell the captain of the boat what you're going to do, and they say okay, and then it just kind of goes smoothly from there most of the time. We train so often for it. But when you have a communication breakdown like that, it can become a much more complicated situation. There was the issue with communicating with them over the radio because it was difficult for us to understand what they were saying and difficult for them to understand what we were saying.
Yeah, and we had the added problem of them having their net over the side. I felt really uncomfortable getting real close to their vessel, seeing as I don't want to get their net caught in our props.
Everything's kind of time sensitive. We were right in the middle of the main ship channel, and we had a couple large carrier crafts coming in, deep drafts, and it's really hard for them to stop or change course drastically, so the captain of the boat didn't quite understand what was going on, and he threw the line back in the water. So that kind of made us have to restart what we were doing and throw the line over again, kind of reestablish communication with him. It can be frustrating when you're trying to do these things in darkness and the cold and starting to rain and big boats bearing down on you. It's kind of stressful.
Speaking to someone in a different language is always going to be an issue out here. We don't really have too much of Spanish speakers. So the fishermen out here is usually Chinese. But talking to them, a lot of times we use hand signals. Get alongside. Sometimes we'll send a crewman over, so we'll just keep them calm and set up the tow how we want to.
We do a lot of tows, disabled vessels, vessels taken on water, vessels on fire, a lot of people in the water, recoveries.
Kite and windsurfers.
Sailboats and powerboats that get into trouble or have medical situations.
Kayakers in distress, medicos, medevacs. We run average of 500 cases a year.
The biggest factors that we come into for as far as danger goes is just general weather conditions. Today's a nice day, and there still could be possible dangers in affecting a rescue. Our main dangers are going to be weather-related, such as surf, high seas, strong winds. Visibility is a big factor.
The container ships can't divert too much off their course. They're deep draft vessels, which means that they can only operate within that specified channel. If a boat is dead in the water in that channel, there's definite risk. We can usually see them coming. We can usually notify vessel traffic service that we're running a case in that area. And basically, it's just something that you want to be aware of at any time.
I have done a lot of recovery. Kite surfers and windsurfers are usually most successful because they're closer to the station. We've had a couple people get washed out off the rocks fishing. Those haven't ended as well. People were actually killed in those situations.
If a boat's going down, people are not going to want to lose their boat, and they're going to be scared. You know, they might have to get in the water. So we try to maintain our own calm over the radio with him, and that in its own will keep him calm. We'll pass him a pump. Since he was taking on water, we passed him a pump, and it has directions in various languages that breaks it down real easy, how he could operate the pump, keep in communication with the radio, and worst case scenario, we're right there. We could pick him up, bring him on our boat, bring him back safely.
As far as recovering people out of the water, it's a pretty big part of what we do here. Pick up a lot of windsurfers and kite surfers. We do the highest number of those out of probably all the cases that we do. It's recovering them. Come in, have them break down their gear, and then pull them out of the water. Other than that, we've got drownings and, of course, suicides also.
But people, like when it's late night and they run aground, they're going to immediately just freak out. Our job, talking to the person on the boat that's in distress, talking to them, keeping them calm. As soon as they have that sense of relief, they usually calm down just a notch.
You know, you can even flat out tell them it's a bad situation, but I'm going to get you off that boat. Their facial expression changes.
People want to feel like they're taken care of. People want to feel like they're in the best hands. People want to feel like the people that are helping them are trained and know what they're doing. And I think you try to keep that theme going throughout the case, and that sort of dissuades people's fears.
The first person that I saw in the water that was an actual person was a jumper.
Whenever you hear it, that's like Golden Gate Bridge, mid-span or something. It's usually what it is.
Hey, we got any information on them? We got any information on them? Male, female, what they're wearing?
Looks like a seal. That's a seal.
I've been here 3 years. I've probably been involved in 50 or 60 recoveries.
Jumpers are an unfortunate part of the job here because of our location next to Golden Gate Bridge. It's something that we have to deal with on a fairly regular basis. It's not a fun part of the job. It can be particularly hard on younger people, inexperienced people. But the station and the Coast Guard in general is really good about being cognizant of that and dealing with post-traumatic stress issues or just general reactions to that kind of activity.
When you come to a station, you're expecting to save lives. And as these new kids come to the station, they expect to save lives. And they get out here and they see what we have, one every 2 weeks, or whatever it might be. I think after a while, though, there is that kind of like adrenaline rush, and you want to go out there because we've had people that lived, and you want to bring them back. So that's kind of like one of those things that gets your adrenaline going too, is because you might still have the possibility of saving a life with those guys.
It doesn't really matter the demographic, we've seen it all. And unfortunately, when you're coming into the Coast Guard, a lot of times you're coming in to save lives, to be helpful. This is one of the few military branches where you can actually truly say that you are there solely to be a rescuer, to save lives, not take lives, or not be put in positions where you have. And here you have to deal with that a lot more than you do at a lot of the other units.
One of your primary responsibilities is to save life, so it can be pretty difficult when you are unable to save a life. This is something that years ago everybody, just to use the expression, had to suck it up and never show that there was any problem. But like firefighters today and Coast Guard personnel are provided with counseling and such, because it's very difficult. Your goal is to rescue the person that you go out to rescue. It's the ones that you can't rescue that are the most frustrating.
So far, I haven't been in a rescue where we haven't been able to save someone. I can imagine there'd be the feeling that they weren't able to complete their job, and that can be pretty disheartening. I tell the crew that if we ever were to come across a situation like that we're not the ones that put those people in that situation. They put themselves in that situation, and we're going to do the best we can to take them out of that situation, bring them back so they can make it home.
It's never easy when you arrive on scene and you can't save somebody, because for us especially, we're rescuers, and there's no greater feeling than being able to actually save someone's life. And to say you saved someone's life, you can live off of that lovely adrenaline and that sense of accomplishment for quite some time. It's really empowering, and it really makes you feel good about yourself.
Our job is to save lives. When you can't do it, as I see it, a courtesy to the families that we're bringing back their loved ones.
But I will say, the things that get me through that, I think the things that has gotten my crew through those situations, are the fact that we absolutely did everything we could to the best of our ability, to the best of our training, to try to assist those people.
So you're going to feel different each time. You're going to look at the circumstances. You're obviously going to reevaluate how you could have done things better. But at the end of the day, to save yourself, to save your crew, you learn from it, and you know that you made the decision that you were trained to do, that made the most sense at the time, and you know you're going to take that to your next case.
When a boat goes over 90 degrees and you're standing up there on the open bridge and you're looking straight down into green water, it's frightening.
Everything happens so fast, you know what I mean? Like, you'll be sitting there eating, and then all of a sudden that alarm will go off, you know, and you're running down here, and by the time we get the call, the alarm goes off and we're underway, it's maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
When the alarm sounds, yeah, you get hype right away. You're running down to the boats. You might not know what the actual case is. You might not have heard it on the intercom.
Whenever there's weather, you got to be here at the station ready to get underway, even if it's Christmas.
We never really know what's going to happen in the bay. There's a lot of typical cases, but a lot of those typical cases, quote unquote, can turn into something completely different. So you never really know what to expect, and it's what we're here to do. I think most of us love to do it.
You know, you're always a little nervous going out there, you know what I mean? People tell you they aren't, but they are. You know, you just got to overcome that, you know, and do your job.
When explaining a wave, it's the 10 seconds is the period of time between the highest part of the wave and the highest part of the wave before it, the lowest part of the wave and the lowest part of the wave before it. So that's the period that it takes one wave to go through. So that's the 10 seconds from crest to crest. And then the height is from the lowest point to the highest point. So you could have a 6-foot wave coming in every 4 seconds. It's going to be a lot more rough than, say, a 13 or 14-foot wave coming in at 20 seconds. You're talking about a big, slow hill as opposed to a bunch of short, choppy hills, and how that affects the boat.
When you're up there, height of eye is 14 feet. So as you see a wave like that approaching, something that's close to the limitations, over the max limitations of surf, which is 20 foot, a lot of stuff's going through the boat drivers' heads before we even reach that wave, which is, do we have enough power to get in and over the wave? Or do we have too much power and we're going to launch off this wave?
A larger wave with a longer period you can drive for. You can take it at the angle you want to. You have a lot more freedom to be able to drive within that situation. Shorter periods between waves means you're getting hit often enough that sometimes you just have to power through it.
Meeting the wave is just a matter of appropriate timing, appropriate positioning. You don't want to be in the curl of the wave. If you can, you want to let it break before you, so you're getting it after it's expended most of its energy. Or you want to meet it before it even breaks and get up and over it before it even has a chance to let go of all of that energy, but the last place you want to be is right underneath the curl.
Normally we have persons in the water that are playing on the beach, and sometimes they get out a little too far or turn their back to the ocean and they get pulled into the water by a wave, and there's times where we'll have to go in and pull them out. Normally it's persons right off the beach or surfers. Usually we don't have any boats that get caught in there, but it has happened before.
Depending on the weather conditions, if it's above 10 feet, then we have to wear helmets and heavy weather belts, and there's D-rings all around the boat that you would clip into. You wear a belt around your waist, it's got 2 clips, and it's just 100% tie off. Everywhere you go around on the boat, you're tied off. and you're wearing a helmet and you travel in the buddy system, you got someone who's got your back the whole time.
The boat kind of stops a little bit, and with the upward motion, you can always tell if you start to feel your feet come up off the ground, then you've applied too much power and you're gonna go flying off the back. You definitely feel the boat meets it, stops, because water is a lot of power, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot to meet with a 47-foot long boat.
Seeing a wave come at you that's way over our boat is it's a crazy feeling. It's kind of hard to explain, but kind of hoping for the best when you're seeing that come, this big wall of wave. Nothing behind it, all you see is a big wall of water, so you're just hoping to get over it. A huge, just pretty much stops your boat and a big bang. You really got to hold on, kind of whips you back a couple seconds.
Physically jarring, incredibly jarring, because these boats come down, they come down hard. We're taught to keep our knees flexed, to absorb that, taught how to hold on to the boat when we're in heavy weather. We're strapped in 2 points with heavy weather belts. But the physical sensation is very, and it's nothing about it is rhythmic. It's all very jerky and arrhythmic, because the boat's getting knocked around in the surf or in the heavy weather in unpredictable ways. So you've got to think in terms of supporting yourself when you're doing your work. Standing on 2 feet is impossible when you're working the back deck. You need to be leaning against something, have a 3-point stance with solidly placed, or you're not going to be able to do your work.
To be in the high surf, it's very violent. Feels like you fall about 3 or 4 stories.
It is possible if you have too much slack in your line that you could go partially over the side of the boat, but everyone's watching the waves at all times, and they see what's coming, so we're prepared, or at least braced for it if the boat were to go over on its side.
They're not to keep us in position, but they're just to keep us on the boat. So everybody up there is attached to the boat in some way, shape, or form.
You feel the raw power of the ocean when you're in the surf. I almost equate it to snowboarding in the way that you need to move your knees, or skateboarding, how you need to move your knees to stay with the platform that you're on and not get damaged by it.
When I was at Humboldt, we had a knockdown. We took like a 14-foot break on the port beam, which took us over a little over 90. And yeah, that was kind of interesting. We kept going for a little bit and didn't realize. I think everybody was a little still like shocked a little bit of like what just happened.
I would say that anybody that's out in surf or in heavy weather that doesn't have moments of fear probably ought to have their head examined, because it's frightening when the boat goes over 90 degrees. I've been in that situation, and you're standing up there on the open bridge, and you're looking out of the boat, and you're looking straight down into green water. You don't know if the boat's going to go 360.
This boat, it will list like that when it goes over real hard. That's called a hard chine lockup, and that's basically the boat turning over so much that it's convinced that it has a false keel. So the side of the boat will, once that weight shifts over, the side of the boat will take the keel. So it'll think that is where the boat should ride. So the boat will ride sideways. And that's pretty common on this boat just because it's so top buoyant. This boat's designed to get tossed around and stay afloat.
When the wave hits you, it's all by feel. You're feeling what the wave's doing, and you're anticipating the next wave and all that. It's powerful still, but you're not even thinking about all that stuff. You're thinking about keeping the boat, straight up and down and making sure everybody's safe.
The other thing too you got to think about when that boat rolls over is the water's really cold and you're gonna probably lose your breath. The 25-foot boats we have, one had capsized, so they made us do dunker training, like helo training, and how like disoriented you get when you flip over it's pretty crazy.
There's a certain point where like 15 or 20 feet, you kind of are used to that, because you train, 15 feet or less. But there's times where you're out there for real cases and stuff, and we've seen above the 20 foot, and you're looking at a wave, coming down at you. You're like, okay, I'm hoping that I can power through this, because you're not used to it, but you do what you got to do.
Definitely, the point is to not roll it over. It's really, people get confused. It's wave avoidance, and when you're going out and you're trying to do a rescue in the surf, you're trying to avoid the waves actually, but you can't avoid them all. So that's why we train, to learn how to take a break.
I've never been in a rollover. Probably a 50-degree tilt or so. On other ships, I've been on 60-degree tilts before.
Most likely in a rollover, the engine room's gonna take on quite a bit of water. When I was at Humboldt, when I first got there, I'd only been there like 2 months. It was pretty much a rollover. I think they called it a knockdown, but I saw the boat go over probably 160 degrees, and there was probably like 300 gallons of water in the engine room, because there's a vent on the back there where that's how the engines get their air, is through the vent in the back, and water is going to get in there when the boat rolls over. That's going to be number one. After a rollover, I'm going to be making round of the boat, making sure there's everything's still intact, making sure the engine room gets dewatered, just checking the damage, because in the event of a rollover, there is going to be damage. You just hope it's not severe.
That's the main goal in becoming qualified as a surfman, is trying to avoid taking damage to the boat. The boat is just designed for self-righting as a last resort.
The amount of force can severely damage the boat, and you imagine if it can do that to a boat, what it can do to yourself and other crewmen on the boat.
It's a lot rougher than people would normally think. The waves get pretty big, wind plays a big factor. You're getting blown around all over the place, the boat's rocking all over the place, and you really have to have good balance, and it's pretty easy to get knocked over and fall down if you're not holding on.
Seeing a wave that's bigger than the boat, it's just amazing. It's great fun. You trust in the person that's driving, and you know you're going to push through it, especially with the vessel and your training. By the time that you're out in the surf, you know you're probably not going to get hurt.
But when it's actually happening to you and your world is literally on its side, you know, your instincts sort of take hold, and you're just holding on for dear life.
I think the best is when they leave safe. It's knowing they're going to go home, they're going to go on with their lives.
I've had people try to give me big baskets of crab and things like that for saving their boat or saving their catch. Flowers, all sorts of random gifts, but really the thanks is when you do get to help someone.
For me, the best thing is just interacting with all my peers and shipmates that I have at the station. I like the interaction that we get. When they come back from a rescue, it brings back the times that when I got underway every day. Oh, that same joy and that the little the rush that you get from that, so you kind of can experience that off of them.
I'd say the best part about it is training and the cases we get. We're the second busiest station, SAR station, search and rescue station in the Coast Guard. You'll see everything out here, everything you join the Coast Guard for. It's really helping people out here, and when the winter comes, you get to deal with the surf, and the surf's a totally different part of the search and rescue, from the adrenaline rush that it gives you from taking a 15-foot wave off your bow.
It's definitely very different picking up mannequins and stuff, and you'll never forget the first time that you picked up an actual person. I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Nothing but respect for the coxswains that drive these boats. They're not just the ability to physically drive and handle the boat, it's also the maturity and the training and the understanding to make some decisions out there, because they're the only people on scene. Decisions as to whether to put somebody aboard a vessel in particular sea conditions or to medevac somebody. Rather, really critical life and death decisions are made by these guys, and that's a real challenge.
People that we've rescued have stopped by the station, sometimes to meet the boat crew that was involved with it, or congratulate us on a job well done, thank us. It's pretty good to see that.
At the time, that's the reason why I joined, but I didn't realize how rewarding it was until you actually start doing it, saving lives, and you realize, wow, what you're doing does make a difference. What you're doing does help other people.
This museum opened in 2006. This building is an old U.S. Custom House. It was put here in 1856. And in 2006, a group of people decided that a Coast Guard museum would be a good thing to have on Cape Cod. When it first opened, it was, how are we going to fill it? Today, it's so full, we have difficulty displaying everything.
To me, this is what it means to be operational. This is operations. We don't rest. When we do rest, the other section is on, taking care of business. So it's continuous. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday, it doesn't matter what day it is, we are ready to launch.
We get to save people's lives, and when you bring someone inside the cabin and you see that look of fear in their eyes, knowing that they very well could have perished out in the middle of the sea, it's definitely a reward to bring them on board and know that they're going to have a safe ride home.
Every once in a while you'll hear it on the radio, or when we pull them back to the dock, they'll say thank you and all that stuff, and it's, it makes you feel good, because they're actually in need, so, and we're there to help.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about this.
You know what happens is we can still hear you if you went to the bathroom or you were talking to someone.
camera guy sucks. I'm just like,
Oh, I stopped recording.
oh my gosh.
Lost